Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for attending tonight's public hearing for State Road 934 Northeast 79th Street PD&E Study, west of Pelican Harbor Drive to east of Aventure Avenue. It's a public hearing that's on May 13th, 2024. We are having this public hearing in person and online as well. This is bridge number 870083-549-084-550, FM number 449007-1-22-01, ETDM number 14484. Tonight's presentation is being, as I mentioned, held in person and virtually. We are in the process of having our open house period, and the official presentation will begin at 6:15. So again, feel free to review the boards that are being presented online. In the upper right-hand corner, for those who are attending virtually, you will see the meeting boards that you'll be able to scan through while those persons that are in the room have the opportunity to interact with our project management staff and go through those boards one by one. So again, we will come back to the podium at 6:15. So again, I encourage you to go through those boards. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back. All right, if I could just ask everyone to just have a seat, if they could, if you'd just like to just usher yourself in, we're going to get ready to begin. So again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending tonight's public hearing. This is for State Road 934 Northeast 79th Street PD&E Study, west of Pelican Harbor Drive to east of Aventure Avenue. This is the public hearing that's taking place on May 13th, 2024. We do have this hearing in person and also online. And as I mentioned before, we had a period where persons online had the opportunity to review our meeting boards that the persons that are in person had the opportunity to review in our open house session. Now that that's concluded, I will just like to make note of the time. It is 6:17, and we'll go ahead with our presentation. Next slide, please. So if for any reason you're experiencing any technical difficulties, if you do not hear the audio at this time, please check your computer speaker settings. If you're experiencing any difficulties, please contact our technical support staff at manny@graph-code.com. In the event of technical difficulties during the open house or public hearing, please stay online while we work to resolve the issue. Next slide, please. At this point in time, I would like to introduce our FDOT project manager, Paola Martinez. Paola?
Good evening. The Florida Department of Transportation would like to welcome you to the public hearing for the Project Development and Environment, or PD&E Study for State Road 934 Northeast 79th Street, from west of Pelican Harbor Drive to east of Adventure Avenue. Buenas noches. El Departamento de Transporte de la Florida le da la bienvenida a la audiencia pública para el estudio ambiental y desarrollo del proyecto PDIE para la carretera estatal 934, calle 79 del noreste desde el oeste de Pelican Harbor Drive hasta el este de Adventure Avenue. Si necesita traducción durante la reunión, por favor, levante la mano y un miembro de nuestro equipo le asistirá.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Non, moi c'est Yves Fontaine, si moi capable interpréter pour nous aujourd'hui à la département de Floride, département de transportation Floride, besoin d'inviter nous, souhaiter nous la bienvenue à audience publique ça pour un projet que relève projet de développement et environnement qui a fait sous State Road 934 qui que nous relève tout nord-est 79e rue, li à l'ouest de Pelican Harbor Drive, à l'ouest de Pelican Harbor Drive, la privée jusqu'à l'est de on avenue que relève avenue Aventure. Jean-Madame ça te dit, si il y a aucun monde qui besoin d'aide pendant réunion dans interprétation, levez main nous et yon moun dans équipe là a venir pour aider nous. Merci.
My name is Paola Martinez, and I am the project manager with the Florida Department of Transportation. We thank you for joining us today. Here with me tonight are representatives from FDOT and the consultant project team. This hearing is being held to provide you with the opportunity to provide feedback on this project. During the presentation, we will provide multiple ways that you can submit your questions and comments to us about this project. Questions will be responded in writing after the hearing. All questions and comments will become part of the public hearing record. Thank you for attending. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Paola. Okay, so at this time, I would like to recognize any federal, state, county, city officials who may be present tonight. Are there any elected officials that would like to be recognized either in person or online? I do know that we have Dr. Ralph Rosado, who is the village manager here. We have Dr. Richard Shervoni, who is the vice mayor right here. And we also have Commissioner Rachel Stretfield. Commissioner, so nice to have you all here tonight. Vanessa, are you seeing any raised hands online to indicate that there are any elected officials that may be online, Vanessa or Lauren?
No raised. I do not see any, Paulette.
Okay, yes, I'm just asking if there are any elected officials, they can go ahead and just type their names in the question box of the control panel too as well. Are you seeing any raised hands?
I do not see any.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. So as we have no elected officials online, we're going to move on with our presentation. So information is being provided in multiple ways to allow the community to receive information about the project and provide their input. As a reminder, those of you who may have joined online virtually by computer, tablet, or mobile device will be able to see the presentation and provide verbal comments as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. Before we start the presentation, I'd like to share a few details to help you participate in the meeting throughout the GoToWebinar. On your computer panel or device screen, you should see an information window that looks like the one in the upper right-hand corner that's actually currently on the screen. To listen to the meeting, your computer or device speakers are selected by default. If you prefer to listen by phone, select phone call in the audio panel and the control panel and dial in using the information that's displayed. Slide 6, please. Next slide. So providing verbal comments using the GoToWebinar is simple. First, you must request to speak at any time during the webinar. During the comment period, the organizer will call your name that you provided at registration and unmute you. If your microphone icon is green, you are ready to make your comment. If the microphone icon is orange, you will need to click the microphone icon once and it will notify you that you're unmuted. And then you can provide your comment. Again, you will not be on camera at any time if you join online. And during the public comment period, after the formal presentation, in-person participants, that's those that are in the room, will be called upon to speak first, followed by the virtual online speakers who also wish to speak. I'll now turn the presentation over to our project team to begin the presentation, and after the presentation, we will begin the formal comment period. So we'll just go ahead and run that presentation now. As I mentioned, just very quickly, as I'll reiterate, technical information, all attendees will be placed in the listen-only mode throughout the public hearing. Comments or that are being requested from in-persons or persons that are in-person viewing location will be addressed first, and then comments requested submitting during the GoToWebinar will be addressed second. Next slide, please.
The Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, would like to welcome you to the public hearing for the State Road 934 Northeast 79th Street Project Development and Environment, or PD&E Study, from west of Pelican Harbor Drive to east of Adventure Avenue. The financial management project number is 449007-1-22-01. And the Efficient Transportation Decision, or ETDM number, is 14484. The purpose of this public hearing is to share information with the general public about the proposed improvements, the conceptual design, all alternatives under study, and the potential beneficial and adverse social, economic, and environmental impacts upon the community. The public hearing also serves as an official forum, providing an opportunity for members of the public to express their opinions and concerns regarding the project. The feedback gathered from this public hearing will be used to finalize the study recommendations. The presentation is also available on the project webpage at www.southlroads.com/79th Street Bridges PDE Study.html. FDOT is committed to ensuring that the state's infrastructure serves our communities to meet their needs now and in the future. Key areas include safety, resiliency, supply chain, technology, and workforce development. Benefits of this project include safety by providing bike lanes and wider sidewalks, technology by including improvements like video detection at signalized intersections to improve traffic flow, supply chain with an emphasis on maintaining the emergency evacuation route and the transport of goods and services to the adjacent islands, and resiliency by replacing the bridges to meet vertical clearance and sea level rise criteria. Improvements proposed in this study will benefit local residents and businesses, as well as the traveling public. We would like to thank everyone who has been involved from the very beginning of this project, as many of their recommendations have been incorporated into the analyzed alternatives. The public hearing was advertised in the Florida Administrative Register, on FDOT's Public Notices website, the project webpage, and in the local newspaper. In addition, adjacent property owners, interested individuals, elected and appointed officials, and government agencies were also notified about this public hearing. Hearing information was also shared on social media. This public hearing was advertised consistent with the federal and state requirements shown on the slide. The environmental review, consultation, and other actions required by applicable federal environmental laws for this project are being or have been carried out by FDOT pursuant to 23 U.S.C. 327 and a memorandum of understanding dated May 26, 2022, and executed by the Federal Highway Administration and FDOT. Project documents are available for viewing at the North Bay Village City Hall, 1666 John F. Kennedy Causeway, first floor, North Bay Village, Florida, 33141. Hours are 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Project documents are also available at the FDOT District 6 office, 1000 Northwest 111th Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33172. Hours are from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. In addition, the project documents can be viewed on the project webpage. There are three primary components to tonight's hearing. First, the open house, which occurred prior to this presentation, where you were invited to view the project displays and to speak directly with the project team and provide your comments in writing or to the court reporter. Second, this presentation, which will explain the project purpose and need, study alternatives, potential impacts, both beneficial and adverse, and proposed methods to mitigate adverse project impacts. And third, a formal comment period following this presentation, where you will have the opportunity to provide oral statements at the microphone, or you may provide your comments directly to the court reporter or in writing. This public hearing was advertised and is being conducted in accordance with state and federal requirements, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Public participation is solicited without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status. Persons wishing to express their concerns about Title VI may do so by contacting Tish Berger, District 6 Interim Title VI Coordinator, by mail at 1000 Northwest 111th Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33172, by phone at 305-470-5277, or by email at tish.berger, that's tish.burgher @dot.state.fl.us. You may also contact Stefan Kulikowski, State Title VI Coordinator, by mail at 605 Suwannee Street, Mail Station 65, Tallahassee, Florida, 32399, by phone at 850-414-4742, or by email at stefan.kulikowski, that's STEFAN.KULAKOWSKI @dot.state.fl.us. This information is shown on a sign at the in-person location, on the project website, and in the hearing notifications. The agenda for tonight's public hearing is intended to cover the latest project information, including an overview of the listed topics. A formal comment period will be provided following the conclusion of the presentation. FDOT is conducting a Project Development and Environment, or PD&E study on 4 bridges, or 2 pairs of bridges, along State Road 934, Northeast 79th Street. Shown here, the project study limits extend from west of Pelican Harbor Drive to east of Adventure Avenue for a total distance of 0.87 miles. These bridges connect 3 islands within the city of Miami and North Bay Village in Miami-Dade County. The existing bridges are concrete slab bridges, which were constructed in the early 1970s. The bridges are not deemed navigable by the United States Coast Guard. There have been several rehabilitation efforts performed on the bridges. The latest bridge rehabilitation in 2015 included the installation of a traffic railing on the outside lanes for bicycle and pedestrians on the Eastern Bridge. Based on the most recent bridge inspections performed in October 2023, the bridges were found to be deficient and have a sufficiency rating below 50, which means the bridges may qualify for bridge replacement funds. The bridges west of Harbor Island include 2 separate structures that carry eastbound and westbound traffic. The typical section consists of 6 lanes divided by a 15.5-foot wide raised median with 2 11-foot wide inside travel lanes and 1 13.5-foot wide outside travel lane that shares its use with bicycle traffic. Curb and gutter are adjacent to the outside travel lanes, along with a 5-foot wide sidewalk. The bridges east of Harbor Island are also two separate structures that carry eastbound and westbound traffic. The typical section consists of 6 lanes divided by a 15.5-foot wide raised median with 10-foot wide travel lanes, a designated 5.5-foot wide bike lane with curb and gutter, and a 4-foot, 4.75-inch wide sidewalk with a pedestrian railing. The PD&E study is part of the transportation project delivery process. The PD&E process is followed by FDOT to identify engineering alternatives, evaluate environmental impacts, and comply with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, in addition to other federal and state environmental laws. At the end of the PD&E study, and following approval from the FDOT Office of Environmental Management, a preferred alternative will continue into the design phase, followed by right-of-way acquisition and construction. At this time, final design is funded for 2025. Right-of-way is currently not fully funded, and construction is funded for 2029. The PD&E process utilized a continuous community outreach process to ensure that all interested parties have meaningful participation in the process. Public input and information received at the hearing will be taken into consideration when preparing the final documents for this study. The purpose of the PD&E study is to identify bridge replacement alternatives and to evaluate the potential impacts. The project is needed to address the structural deficiencies of the 4 existing bridges, or 2 bridge pairs, and to maintain the emergency evacuation route and response times. The existing bridges are more than 50 years old in a highly aggressive environment and are showing signs of deterioration. The department will continue to perform timely repairs to keep the flat bridges in good condition until they are eventually replaced. Planning consistency means the project information is consistent with the FDOT and the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization planning documents and programs. The project is identified in the approved Miami-Dade TPO Transportation Improvement Program. Efforts are ongoing to include all future project phases in the TPO Long Range Transportation Plan. A tiered approach was used to identify and evaluate alternatives. Following initial data collection, the next step was to perform a typical section analysis, considering the number of lanes, lane widths, shoulder widths, and pedestrian and bicycle accommodations. Bridge height and constructability were also considered in the typical section analysis. Alternatives were then developed and evaluated against multiple traffic, safety, engineering, and environmental criteria. An initial alternative screening then took place, and multiple alternatives were dismissed from consideration, including the Transportation System Management and Operations Alternative and Rehabilitation Alternatives 1A and 1B. These alternatives were dismissed because they do not meet the project purpose and need. The eliminated alternatives, in addition to the no-build and build replacement alternatives, were presented at an alternatives public meeting held in October 2023. Build replacement alternatives, referred to as Alternative 2A and 2B, were further refined following the meeting based on input and results of the impact analysis. Alternative 2A and Alternative 2B share the same recommended typical section and same structure type. The typical section consists of 2 10-foot travel lanes, 1 11-foot travel lane, an 8-foot 4-inch bike lane, and a 6-foot sidewalk in each direction. There is also a concrete traffic barrier between the bike lane and the sidewalk. The primary difference between Alternatives 2A and 2B is the vertical bridge profile. Alternative 2A has a vertical profile that is similar to the existing bridges, which is an approximately 3-foot vertical clearance above mean high water of Biscayne Bay. Alternative 2B has a vertical profile that is raised to a minimum of approximately 7 feet to meet sea level rise criteria and to increase the vertical clearance over mean high water for Biscayne Bay. Due to the increased profile, Alternative 2B would require retaining walls and the reconstruction of several driveways adjacent to the replacement bridges. Anticipated impacts from the no-build and bridge replacement alternatives were compared and evaluated. Major differences relate to how the alternatives meet roadway and bridge criteria, their estimated service life, whether they meet sea level rise requirements, costs, and potential environmental impacts. As stated previously, there have been various opportunities for the public to provide input on the project alternatives, including the Alternatives Public Meeting held on October 2nd and 5th of 2023. Based on the input received from the meetings, as well as the analysis completed during the PD&E study, a preferred alternative has been determined and is being presented tonight. Public input and information received at tonight's hearing will be taken into consideration when preparing the final documents for this study. With consideration of public input and an evaluation of environmental and engineering considerations, the preferred alternative for the bridge replacement is Alternative 2B. Alternative 2B meets the project purpose and need and fully complies with current design standards to maximize the life of the new bridges. Following the October 2023 Alternatives Public Meetings, several typical section options were evaluated for the roadway segment from Pelican Harbor Drive to the Western Bridge Pair to provide continuity of the bicycle lanes, upgrade the pedestrian facilities, and address roadside safety while minimizing right-of-way and environmental impacts. Based on the typical section evaluation, the preferred roadway typical section in this section provides a 15.5-foot raised median, 2 10-foot wide inside lanes, and 1 11-foot wide outside lane, 4.25-foot bicycle lanes, 6-foot wide sidewalks, curb and gutter, and guardrail at the face of the curb. The replacement bridges would transition to the existing roadway on either side of the bridges, and the roadway would be improved to meet current design standards. The roadway segment at North Bay Island, Harbor Island would be improved to provide a raised median, 2 10-foot inside lanes and 1 11-foot outside lane, 7-foot buffered bicycle lanes, and 6-foot sidewalks in each direction. The proposed roadway segment at Treasure Island transitions from the preferred roadway typical section as the bridge approaches to the existing typical section at the east project limit. An important element of this PD&E study was to evaluate the potential project impacts and benefits. A wide range of environmental resources were evaluated, including various social, cultural, natural, and physical features. Engineering and traffic factors were also considered. The resources in bold are further discussed for the preferred alternative on the following slides. Resources include recreation and Section 4F lands, wetlands and other surface waters, protected habitat and species, essential fish habitat, and contamination. There are no additional impacts for the remaining items. A summary of the impacts from all build alternatives is provided in the environmental support documents prepared for the project. 2 recreational resources adjacent to the project, Pelican Harbor Park and Marina and North Bay Village Dog Park, are potentially protected by Section 4F of the U.S. Department of Transportation Act of 1966. Approximately 0.29 acres from Pelican Harbor Park would be needed for a permanent easement to accommodate the improved bike and pedestrian facilities, and an additional 0.12 acres would be needed for a temporary construction easement. A temporary construction easement would also be needed for driveway reconstruction near the North Bay Village Dog Park. However, the impact would be so minimal as to not constitute a use within the meaning of Section 4F. Overall, the proposed project improvements will not impact the activities, features, and attributes of either recreational resource. The project has been evaluated with respect to the Presidential Executive Order 11990 entitled Protection of Wetlands and Executive Order 11988 entitled Floodplain Management and Protection. No direct impact to corals is anticipated. Some mangroves and buttonwoods growing in portions of Pelican Harbor Park are within the project footprint and would be impacted during construction. The temporary construction easement would result in 0.05 acre of impact to buttonwoods and mangroves and 0.05 acre of impacts to Biscayne Bay. Long-term impacts under the preferred alternative include an additional 0.3 acre of shading of Biscayne Bay and 0.27 acre of impacts to buttonwoods and mangroves. Minimizing impacts to mangroves and buttonwoods will continue to be coordinated with Miami-Dade County, the South Florida Water Management District, and the National Marine Fisheries Service throughout the design and construction phases. The project was evaluated for potential impacts to federal and state threatened, endangered, and protected species. 23 listed species and 2 candidate species were identified as having the potential to occur in the study area. The project may affect, but is not likely to adversely affect, several species. To avoid impacts to these species, FDOT has committed to various protection measures and best management practices during construction. The preferred alternative may require relocation of utilities currently located within the right-of-way or mounted on the replacement bridges. The extent of utility impacts and cost of utility relocations will be determined as part of the design phase. Potentially contaminated sites were identified and evaluated. Of the sites identified, the project has the potential to impact 4 sites with a high risk for contamination and 1 site with a medium risk. These locations will be further assessed during the design phase prior to construction. This project will not cause any relocation of families or businesses. All right-of-way acquisition will be conducted in accordance with Florida Statute 339.09 and 421.55, and also the Federal Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970, commonly known as the Uniform Act. The right-of-way specialists who are supervising this program are here tonight and will be happy to answer your questions. Access management is used to determine the locations of driveway connections, median openings, and traffic signals to improve safety and traffic flow. The existing access management controls along 79th Street will remain, including the signalized intersections and driveway connections. Due to the profile of the preferred alternative, driveway reconstruction will occur at 6 locations along the corridor. In addition, the median opening on the east end of Harbor Island is proposed for closure to prohibit U-turns and improve safety at this location. This PD&E study started in May of 2022 and is anticipated to be complete by fall 2024. Following this evening's hearing, FDOT will gather public comments and finalize the PD&E study documentation for approval. After completion of the PD&E phase, the preferred alternative will move into the design phase, which is currently funded for 2025. Followed by design, the project will then move into construction, which is funded and anticipated to begin in 2029. The next step is to incorporate your input on this public hearing into our decision-making process. After the comment period closes and your input has been considered, a decision will be made and the final PD&E document will be approved. This project has and will continue to comply with all applicable state and federal rules and regulations. We encourage your input and feedback about this project, and there are multiple ways for you to participate. All public comments and questions are part of the public hearing record, and every method for providing public comments and questions carries equal weight. While comments and questions will be accepted at any time, those submitted by May 23, 2024 will become part of the project's public hearing record. All questions will be responded to in writing following the hearing. This concludes the presentation.
The time is now 6:48 p.m. We'll begin the formal comment period of tonight's public hearing. For virtual attendees who wish to speak, please indicate your questions in the question box and include your name and address too as well. For those persons that are attending in person, we ask that you give your speaker card, if you haven't already done so already, to one of our staff members. I'm not sure if Diana or Isela has received any speaker cards. Diana is standing right here. She's in the back towards you. If anyone completed their speaker cards, if you wish to come to the podium. Isela, are there any? No, none that are filled out. Okay, if you haven't received a speaker card, you do have the opportunity to do so now. They'll be happy to provide you with a speaker card. You can, I see that the commissioner is doing that. If there's anyone else that would like a speaker card, she does have a pen that's readily available. You can just go ahead and request one. And at that time, we just ask that you come up to the microphone here and then speak. If anyone back there. Are you guys online seeing any questions or comments, any raised hands, Vanessa or Lauren?
Yes, there is one question in the questions box at this time. And
Okay.
that question is, would the bike lanes be buffered?
Okay, so that's a question. Yes, absolutely. We're actually going to, without a doubt, for sure, we're going to ask the commissioner to come up. What we're going to do first, and thank you so much for that, Lauren, but we are going to have the in-person comments recorded first. And if I could just have the commissioners ready. Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner. That microphone does need to be turned on.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is the mic on? Okay. I want to thank the questioner from the virtual world for asking the question. That was also going to be one of my questions.
Okay, great.
Will they be buffered? And then to build on the question, does FDOT keep records of evacuation routes that have bollard protected bike lanes as opposed to evacuation routes that do not have protected bike lanes, and what the difference is in pedestrian injuries, fatalities, accidents between the two? Specifically, I'm requesting any evidence-based decision or any evidence that could inform an evidence-based decision on whether or not those bike lanes need to be protected. I also have a question about the 4 high-risk areas for contamination. If you could elaborate on that, and when the results from the study come in, I think we'd all like to better understand what the 4 areas are in terms of high-risk contamination. As far as the removal of the palm trees from the median, I understand why those palms need to be removed to extend the turning lane onto Harbor Island. Does FDOT have proposed locations for where those trees could be relocated? I know this project won't commence construction for another 5 years, but we just got those palm trees installed, and it was a 2-year process. It was a 2-year process to get those palm trees permitted. So how quickly and where could they be relocated? But I want to thank FDOT for doing the sea level impact study. The height of the bridges seems to be consistent with future sea level rise and storm surge conditions, so that's really good to see. My number one concern, though, is the protection of those bike lanes, the width of the sidewalks, and whether or not it is FDOT's practice, or whether it can be FDOT's practice to study traffic calming mechanisms for the Causeway. We do have, as you know, very serious issues speeding, and our police department does the absolute best that anybody can do under the circumstances, but FDOT's partnership would be much appreciated.
Thank you so much for your comments, Commissioner. We really do appreciate it. As a reminder, questions will be responded to in writing after the hearing. All questions and comments will be made a part of the public record. We do have our court reporter that's here, so everything again that will be recorded, and it will be kept as a part of the public hearing record. So do we have any other, I'm not seeing any raised hands in the audience, and there are no speaker cards, correct, Diana? Okay, can Vanessa or Lauren tell me if there are any raised hands or any additional questions or comments from anyone online that we need to unmute?
Yes, Paulette, we did have one more comment come in. The presentation mentioned the need to reconstruct driveway openings. There are already serious issues related to the extremely short driveway on Harbor Island Drive. Have studies been performed to improve those entrances?
Okay, and I'd like to thank, can you give me the name of the person that's making the comment, Lauren, for our record?
Yes, the first comment regarding the buffered bike lanes came from Vinod Savansamy. The second comment came from Sherry Lochala.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, next slide, please. This is just information having to do with the online public comments. As you mentioned, you may request to speak. The organizer will call your name and unmute you. I'm just going to reiterate, you can make your comment when the microphone icon is on too as well. Next slide, please. And so just to reiterate that you may also submit your comments after tonight's public hearing. They must be postmarked or emailed by May 23rd, 2024 to become part of the public hearing records. Written comments may be mailed or emailed to the project manager, Paola Martinez, who you heard from, whose contact information is also shown on this slide and in the handout that you're provided. You may also visit our project website listed on the screen to further view the documents or submit any additional comments. And as was mentioned during the presentation, those documents are also at the village property as well as on the FDOT District 6 office too as well, in our PD&E office. The exact transcript of this public hearing's oral proceedings, together with all written materials received as part of the hearing record and all studies, displays, and informational materials provided at the hearing will be made a part of the project decision-making process and will be for public review upon request. And at this time, providing we have no additional comments or I guess maybe questions that would be like to entered into record. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending this public hearing and for providing your input on this project. I hereby officially close the public hearing and thank you for participation and ask that you all have a very safe evening. Thank you.